academics, and ladies and gentlemen. It's with great pleasure that we welcome you to the 39th installment of the Inaugural Lecture Series, proudly organized by the Faculty of Graduate Studies of the University of Moratuwa. To formally begin today's commencements, I'd now like to invite Professor Yasangika Sandanayaka from the University of Moratuwa to introduce our professor for the day, who will be Professor Anishka Hettiarachchi from the Department of Architecture of the Faculty of Architecture at the University of Moratuwa.
Thank you. Good afternoon, distinguished guests. I'm delighted to welcome you all to the inaugural professorial lecture of my very good friend and colleague, Professor Anishka Hettiarachchi. This introduction holds a special place in my heart, as Anishka and I entered this university together as fresh undergraduates with full of dreams nearly 3 decades ago. To witness her growth from a young architecture student to an accomplished professor, researcher, and mentor is both a privilege and a joy. Professor Anishka Hettiarachchi is a distinguished academic, researcher, chartered architect, and a professional counselor who has dedicated her career to advancing architecture and human well-being through education, research, and practice. She currently serves as a professor in the Department of Architecture, Faculty of Architecture, University of Moratuwa. Her academic journey began at this university nearly 3 decades ago, where she entered as an undergraduate in the BSc in Built Environment program. She graduated with first-class honors in 1999, securing the Professor H.J. Bilimoria Award for highest overall marks and brilliant pass for her comprehensive design project. She went on to complete her MSc in architecture in 2002 and later her PhD in 2015 with innovative research on the manifestation and contributing factors of color, associated thermal perception, exploring how red and blue influence perceived thermal comfort. Her professional credentials include becoming a chartered architect of the Sri Lankan Institute of Architects in 2009 and a chartered member of Royal Institute of British Architects in 2010. She is also an associate member of the Sri Lanka Institute of Architects and continues to contribute actively to the profession. Alongside architecture, Professor Anishka holds a diploma in counseling from the University of Sri Jayewardenepura and is a recognized professional counselor. She has served as a member of several national bodies dedicated to architecture, counseling, and higher education. Her leadership role within the University of Moratuwa are equally impressive. She served as Chief Student Counselor of the University of Moratuwa for 2 terms from 2018 to 2023 and Director Undergraduate Studies Division in the Faculty of Architecture from 2015 to 2018. Her commitment to students' academic and personal growth is further reflected in her roles as student counselor for over a decade and a senior treasurer of various student societies, including Classical Music Society, Art Circle, and Archi Student Society. These roles highlight her deep engagement with student life, combining academic mentorship with holistic care. With more than 20 years of teaching and research experience, Professor Anishka has supervised numerous undergraduates and postgraduate theses and has published widely in her areas of expertise. Her principal research interest lies in color psychology, neuroarchitecture, architecture physiology, and design for mental health and well-being. She is recognized nationally and internationally for her pioneering work, which has earned her multiple awards, including Outstanding Research Performance Award from the University of Moratuwa, the Best Paper Award at FARO Conference for her research on color and mental health, and recognition at the National Energy Symposium and World Construction Symposium. Prof. Anishka is not only an academic of high caliber, but also an educator and mentor who has touched the lives of many students through her empathy, encouragement, and inspiration. She has played a vital role in integrating science and psychology into the fields of architecture, positioning herself as one of the leading voices in color psychology in Sri Lanka. Therefore, it is my honor and privilege to introduce Prof. Anishka Hettiarachchi, my friend, admired colleague, teacher, and scholar of the Department of Architecture. Over to you, Anishka.
Good afternoon, all of you. And thank you so much, Prof. Sangika, for that very kind introduction. And more importantly, for being an inspiring, supportive colleague and a dear friend who has walked alongside me throughout this journey. And it is indeed a great honor to deliver my inaugural lecture today. And I warmly welcome the Deans of the Faculty of Graduate Studies and Faculty of Architecture, all my respected teachers, my colleagues, my beloved students, significantly who are joining online today. And your presence makes this occasion truly a very meaningful one for me. And I begin with gratitude for the blessings from above, for my teachers who guided me, especially my PhD research supervisor, late Professor Emeritus Nimalda Silva, and my colleagues who supported me, my students who inspired me, and above all, my parents and my family whose love and strength have carried me to this day. And this afternoon, I will share with you a journey that is deeply significant to me. 2 decades of research culminating in the emerging discipline of neuroarchitecture. And together, we will explore how architecture shapes cognition, emotions, behavior, and ultimately human well-being. So I will begin with my philosophy to architecture. So I will take you through my journey through these contents, and I would start with my philosophy to architecture. So my take on architecture goes beyond how it looks to how it feels. Louis Sullivan once said, "Form follows function," emphasizing the utility as a driving force in design. Yet today, I believe form follows feelings. Architecture is not only about what is being built, but what is lived as well. It's a multisensory experience that engages us visually, acoustically, tactically, and spiritually. It is not only about shaping spaces, but also about shaping overall human experience. To quote Sir Winston Churchill's words, "We shape our buildings, thereafter they shape us." And spaces are never merely functional. They shape how we feel and ultimately how we thrive. Buildings are living environments that touches our senses and emotions every day. The colors we see, the light we feel, the scales we move through all influence how we think, behave, and even who we become eventually. And this aligns with Juhani Plasma's insights that architecture is the art of reconciliation between ourselves and the world. And this mediation takes place through the senses. And architecture, therefore, is about the full spectrum of a sensory life, about how we inhibit and are inhibited by our spaces, which can either enrich our lives or burden us. So let's discuss about our personal experiences. Have you ever wondered why a hospital corridor can feel cold or even traumatizing? While a walk in nature is smooth, restores our spirits, and why some buildings feel warmly inviting, while others reject or even intimidating, why certain places allow you to simply be yourself, and while others make you feel kind of controlled and disciplined. Why are some places etched in memory with nostalgia, drawing us back again and again to those places, while others fade without meaning? And in essence, how do we find our kind of place or our happy place? This is precisely what neuroarchitecture seeks to explain. The science of how spaces shape our mind, our emotions, our connections to spaces, memories, and eventually our well-being. So with that, let me take you to the definition of neuroarchitecture. At its simplest, neuroarchitecture is where neuroscience and design meet to create spaces that shapes how we think, feel, and live. It is an emerging interdisciplinary field that integrates neuroscience, psychology, and architecture to study how the built environment influences the brain so that it will influence emotions, behavior, and ultimately our overall well-being. So then the question arises, why neuroarchitecture? Architecture has always reflected its time. Classical and Gothic styles pursued symmetry, order, and spiritual wonder. And then the Renaissance and Baroque celebrated grandeur. Modernism championed efficiency under the maxim, form follows function. Yet, these traditions often overlooked how spaces make us feel. Brutalism honestly left many feeling cold and alienated, while postmodernism's playful gestures rarely touched deeper human needs. And in recent decades, movements such as sustainability, biophilia, and human-centered design have begun to place well-being back at the center. Yet, much of this work has relied on intuition. Neuroarchitecture takes the next step by combining neuroscience and psychology with design to rehumanize and renaturalize our buildings and cities. And today, we face growing challenges in mental health and well-being. Therefore, neuroarchitecture emerges as the next chapter in the story of architecture. And then, the manifestation. Neuroarchitecture brings neuroscience into the design studio. So to comprehend this relationship, we must first of all understand the brain, the central organ governing perception, cognition, memory, emotion, and decision-making. The largest structure, the cerebrum, is divided into two hemispheres. Its outer layer, the cerebral cortex, is responsible for advanced cognitive functions such as reasoning, perception, language, and awareness. And as you can see, each and every lobe of our brain has its own dedicated functions. For instance, frontal lobe is responsible in planning, decision-making, voluntary movement, and regulation of emotions. And parietal lobe is responsible in integration of sensory input, including touch, taste, and spatial orientation. And moving on to occipital lobe, which is very important for us because it is responsible in overall visual perception, such as color, shape, and facial recognition. And temporal lobe is responsible in overall memory formation, auditory and olfactory processing, language, comprehension, and emotional associations. And beneath the cortex lies the limbic system, often described as the brain's emotional core. The hippocampus supports memory and spatial navigation, while the amygdala and hypothalamus regulates motivation, fear, and reward. Together, cortical and limbic regions continuously interpret environmental stimuli and shaping both behavior and emotional states. So when the brain encounters stimuli, sensory signals are processed in the cortical regions and transmitted to the limbic system. And this interaction modulates the automatic nerve system, activating either the sympathetic brain or the parasympathetic brain. For instance, sympathetic branch will arouse stress and heighten alertness, whereas the parasympathetic branch will restore calm and assist recovery. Now I would like to take you through two contrasting examples which highlights this process very clearly. A gambling environment with red illumination. So according to literature, intense red is detected by the photoreceptors, processed through the visual cortex, and transmitted to the limbic system, where it heightens activity in the amygdala and hypothalamus. This activation signals arousal and reward anticipation, triggering the sympathetic nerve system to release dopamine and adrenaline, which are hormones that drive excitement, risk-taking, and impulsive behavior. And contrastingly, a minimalist workstation with a window overlooking a sensory garden. This engages multiple senses, sending signals to brain regions associated with safety and reward. The limbic system interprets these skills as restorative, activating the parasympathetic nerve system, lowering stress hormones such as cortisol, and releasing serotonin and oxytocin to promote calm, focus, emotional comfort, and greater cognitive flexibility as well. These examples confirm that built environment is never neutral. It interacts directly with the neural systems, either reinforcing harmful behaviors or else fostering our well-being. So let me share a very powerful example which comes from the medical research field. When the American medical researcher Jonah Saul struggled with his polio vaccine experiments in a cramped basement lab in Pittsburgh, he took a break in a 13th century monastery in Assisi. Walking through its quiet cloisters, he felt his mind unwind, and breakthrough ideas emerged that ultimately led to the vaccine. Convinced that inspiring environments stimulate creativity, Salk later requested the famous architect Louis Kahn to design the Salk Institute as a monastery for scientists, a contemplative environment to nurture discovery. Conversely, the built environment also can reinforce maladaptive behaviors, as articulated in Aaron Beck's cognitive behavioral framework for substance abuse. And Beck and colleagues in 1993 demonstrated how environmental cues sustain addiction and harmful patterns of behavior, underscoring that modifying one's surroundings is central to effective therapeutic interventions. And this places a profound responsibility on architects and designers to conceive spaces and buildings not merely as functional enclosures, but as active contributors to human health as well as flourishing. Now you can see the core research areas in the field of neuroarchitecture. To be specific, there are 8 core research areas under this broad umbrella of neuroarchitecture. And now let's take them one by one, offering a glimpse into the key findings emerging from each domain. So I'll start with senses and perception. Spaces affect us at a multisensory level. Warm hues energize, while cool tones restore calm and cognitive balance. Curved forms activate the brain's reward system, while sharp edges in the spaces trigger the amygdala's threat response. And natural materials such as wood calm the nerve system more than steel or marble. And exposure to light improves alertness and supports circadian rhythms. And memory. The hippocampus links environment with memory. According to research, distinctive spaces enriched with color, texture, or natural features strengthen episodic memory, while monotonous spaces impair recall. Further, warmer light conditions are shown to enhance both attention as well as memory. Wayfinding. Clear orientation reduces cognitive load and stress. And reliable layouts with landmarks enhance spatial memory, while confusing or cramped environments heighten disorientation. As per the example that you can see on your right-hand corner, it will be very difficult to locate yourself in terms of wayfinding. So it's better significantly for the subjects with like neurodiversity, wayfinding is pivotal. Moving on to biophilia, exposure to daylight, greenery, and fractal patterns are shown to lower stress responses in amygdala. And walking in nature settings induces alpha brain waves associated with relaxation as well as creativity. Moving on to research on behavior, it's clearly established that design directly shapes actions of human beings. Open and spacious settings promote exploration and collaboration, while crowded or monotonous spaces encourage withdrawal. And colors also influence behavior, with blues and reds simulating higher neural activation than plain white environments. And moving on to development stages of human beings, including your childhood and aging, children's cognitive growth flourishes in colorful, stimulating settings, while older adults benefit from environments with strong visual cues. Abundant natural light and layouts that support memory and orientation. Moving on to neurodiversity, inclusive design accommodates diverse cognitive profiles. Calmer sensory environments support those with autism, ADHD, while adaptable spaces allow individuals to regulate simulation according to their needs. And ultimately, all these parameters and design interventions will affect health and well-being. So neuroarchitecture demonstrates that environment profoundly affects mental, physical, as well as social health. In summary, these research areas provide the scientific foundation for applying neuroarchitecture in practice, guiding the creation of spaces that actively enhance human well-being. And now it is time to take you through my research journey. My research journey began with a fascination for the role of color in the built environment. And color theory divides hues into three families: warm, cool, and neutral, each carrying distinct psychological effects that influence perception and behavior. I was particularly drawn to the dual nature of warm and cool colors. Warm tones energize, stimulate, and uplift, while cool tones soothe, calm, and restful. And on the other hand, there's this other theory called color harmony, which is the key. For instance, too much warmth will overstimulate in space, and too much coolness understimulates, highlighting the art of designing spaces that enrich experience without distortion. Inspired by the work of eminent scholars such as Eichen, Byron, and Mankey, I explored how color shapes thought, emotion, and behavior in alignment with the function of spaces. Red, for example, stimulates arousal and heightens appetite, but also can provoke anxiety and irritation if overused. On the other hand, blue conveys calm and trust, yet darker tones may evoke sadness, lethargy, as well as depression. These paradoxes reveal that color can heal or harm, depending on the context, exposure, and its properties. So moving from theory to practice, my doctoral research asks the question, why do we perceive some colors as warm and others as cold? And how can a purely visual stimulus evoke a sensation belong to another sensory paradigm, like tactile sensation? And ideally, I would have used advanced brain imaging like functional MRIs to study how color activates specific brain regions. But this was beyond my reach at that time, both technologically as well as financially. Accordingly, using a mixed method approach, I adapted non-invasive body temperature monitoring, infrared imaging of color surfaces, environmental data, as well as self-reportings to uncover how perceptions of warmth and coolness manifest with special reference to red and blue colors. And this inquiry gradually unfolded into multiple branches within the field of neuroarchitecture. As you can see, my research journey was then touching upon mental health and well-being, multisensory design, and the role of biophilia in workplace satisfaction, etc. So from here, I will share selected highlights of my journey through the lens of neuroarchitecture. So I will start with thermal comfort as a neuro perception. So this is my doctoral research, which addressed this long-standing gap, the need for empirical evidence on how color-associated thermal perception manifests, which I call as CTP, and what are the pertaining parameters. So I derived 3 hypotheses. First one was CTP as a manifestation of a psychological response, and secondly, as a biological response indicated by changes in the body, including core body temperature. And thirdly, CTP as an actual thermal sensation caused by heat radiation from the colored surfaces, which is absorbed by the human skin. But the findings were compelling. The red-colored workstation consistently evoked warmer thermal perception, while blue workstations were perceived as cooler, even with the indoor temperature held consistent at 26 degrees Celsius. And the regression analysis confirmed that CTP is primarily a psychological response shaped by culturally learned connotations and also neurological associations. Color thus emerges as a neuroarchitectural stimulus capable of modulating thermal perception independently of the actual thermal conditions. Therefore, in practice, this positions color as a non-mechanical design strategy, optimizing comfort, reducing energy demand, and guiding human behavior as well. So taking inspirations from this, then we conducted this field experiment in a housing scheme in Talava in the cool climatic region and examined how warm colors, particularly color red, influence indoor thermal perception. Quite interestingly, 99.9% of the participants felt that the red room was warmer, while 93.5% perceived that the blue room was even cooler than the actual cold climatic condition. So this demonstrates that warm colors can create a perceived thermal environment that counteracts the actual cold conditions, enhancing comfort, satisfaction, and even the energy levels, which is consumed. So incorporating such color strategies in cold climates can improve overall living environments and reduce reliance on artificial heating, offering both psychological and energy-saving benefits. And testing the reverse action of this particular scenario, in a medium-scale garment factory in Panadura, ventilated by ceiling fans, we had an idle setting to investigate how color influences thermal comfort in Sri Lanka's hot tropical climate, a context where even subtle design choices can significantly affect perception and the energy usage. The study revealed that color can alter comfort thresholds. For instance, blue interior allowed workers to feel comfortable at a lower fan speed level, reducing energy consumption, whereas red interiors promoted higher fan speeds and a greater demand for energy. Essentially, color acted as a cognitive mediator here for thermal perception, shaping how heat was experienced visually, which is the very important keyword here, visual experience of heat. So these findings highlight color as a powerful, non-mechanical design tool that can enhance comfort while conserving energy and demonstrate neuroarchitecture's capability or capacity to align perception, behavior, and performance in tropical environments. And then moving on to light and visual comfort. This study demonstrates that artificial lighting in Colombo urban parks significantly influence the user's visual comfort, perception of safety, and overall satisfaction. Across all the 5 urban parks examined, inadequate lighting, though culturally accepted and routinely navigated by the users, was found to create subtle psychological strain by diminishing feelings of security and reducing spatial legibility as well. And the results underscore that outdoor lighting is not merely a technical necessity for visibility, but a crucial neurodesign element that shapes sensory processing, emotional security, and behavioral patterns in our public spaces. And touching upon few other research done on perception and cognition, we are moving on to time perception. And this study in a Colombo fast food outlet revealed that correlated color temperature, or CCT, influences our time perception and spatial engagement. For instance, warm light made time feel slower for participants, whereas cool made it faster. And the neutral light of 5,500 Kelvin, which is aligned with actual natural light, was aligned with the actual time, while enhancing the dining experience as well. So it was seen that higher CCT levels reduced engagement with the environment, showing that lighting affects both comfort as well as cognitive perceptual experiences. And then on mood, anxiety, well-being, or in general affective regulation. Using virtual simulations and the DAX21 scale, we found that classroom colors significantly influence architecture undergraduates' mood. For example, red elicited the highest stress, anxiety, and depression. Green produced moderate effects, and blue had the least negative effect, even slightly reducing the stress levels. The results show that color acts as a neuroenvironmental stimulus, with warm tones triggering heightened arousal and cool tones supporting emotional regulation. Within a neuroarchitectural framework, this underscores that critical role of thoughtful color integration in promoting mental well-being and healthier learning environments as well. And our study of 3 Colombo software companies revealed that workplace greenery strongly influenced stress and job satisfaction. High greenery environments reduce stress and enhance satisfaction, while low greenery settings elevated stress and lowered their satisfaction. Remarkably, 94% of employees reported that access to green spaces directly supported their mental health and perceived performance levels as well. And these findings highlight that greenery is not merely decorative, but a biophilic stimulus that engages restorative and attunal neural systems as well, making it vital design element for promoting well-being and productivity in the modern workspaces. And this study shows that interior wall colors function as a neuroenvironmental stimuli in healthcare settings, influencing emotional regulation and stress among physically disabled patients. Green color associated with nature and calmness significantly reduced depression, anxiety, and stress, while blue had moderate effects and yellow had minimal impact. These results underscore that carefully designed color schemes can support mental well-being, active restorative neural pathways, and serve as non-pharmacological interventions for emotional healing as well as stress recovery. And this case study of Swarna Place in Colombo explored how incremental vertical housing reshapes residents' sensory and cognitive experience of space. While vertical expansion improved dwelling satisfaction by adding space and their status, it again diminished natural light, ventilation, spatial flexibility, and social cohesion, which are factors that directly influence their perception, emotional security, and well-being. So these findings underscore that unregulated vertical growth not only alters these built forms, but also the neuroenvironmental quality of life, calling for design strategies that sustain both spatial and psychological well-being. And let's move to behavior and performance. In Sri Lanka's apparel industry, color emerged as a powerful behavioral regulator. In a garment factory in Avisavella, blue and green were found to be like cool colors. They are calming hues. They were able to enhance worker satisfaction. 77% preferring blue color, and while red boosted productivity. And these findings demonstrated that strategically balancing warm and cool tones can optimize both performance and well-being, positioning color as a non-mechanical tool for enhancing mood, alertness, as well as industrial outcomes. And this study with grade 2 students in a Colombo boys' school shows that color is more than decoration. It actively shaped the children's cognition, mood, and behavior. Warm hues like orange and yellow enhance logical and analytical thinking, which is connected to left brain activity. And cool tones like blue foster creativity, which is associated with right brain activity, and improve attendance as well, while green and purple offer balanced cognitive support for children. And these findings position color as a neuroarchitectural tool that modulates brain state, enhances learning, and promotes overall well-being in the primary education sector as well. And this very recent study done on neurodiverse education in Nigambu highlights the critical role of architectural wayfinding in supporting visuospatial working memory. Straightforward layouts, shaded green spaces, and structured navigation reduced cognitive load and sensory strain, while environment with poor visual colors and acoustics increased perceptual stress of these children. And these findings position wayfinding as a central design factor essential for creating sensory, responsive, cognitively supportive schools that foster both comfort as well as learning. And a sensory ethnographic study at the blind school Ratmalana revealed that haptic, auditory, olfactory, and subtle light cues are vital for guiding spatial movement in visually impaired individuals. So beyond mere orientation, these cues support comfort and freedom, which are key psychological needs for an optimal sense of place by visually impaired demonstrating how design can actively shape the cognitive and perceptual experience of them. And having examined color, light, greenery, and neurodiversity, now we look at a research on multisensory design in workplace environments, which integrated sight, sound, and nature. And this study showed that a living green wall had the strongest positive impact on employee well-being, further enhanced with the combination of healing music. However, uncoordinated sensory inputs caused overstimulation, highlighting that effective multisensory design is not about adding more and more, but curtaining a balanced and coherent environment that promote restoration, productivity, and flourishing. And a parallel study on indoor greenery revealed that higher coverage and closer proximity consistently enhanced student psychological well-being, amplifying the feelings of autonomy, competence, and positive affect. The restorative impact was strongest when greenery was paired with natural light and courtyard-style arrangements, demonstrating that thoughtful placement and sensory integration, not just presence, allow greenery to act as multisensory regulator of comfort, emotion, and cognition. Finally, I'll move to a research on healthcare sector. This study was done at the National Institute of Mental Health of Sri Lanka, which revealed that patients who visited, patients as well as guardians who visited this establishment reported severe depression, anxiety, and stress, a place which is supposed to heal such diseases, with the overall well-being score remaining dismally low. The reason or the culprit itself was architecture. Dim, airless interiors, restricted access, monotonous corridors, and heavily joyless dark corridors created environments that felt oppressive, even prison-like environments, reinforcing the very stigma these spaces should alleviate. Yet areas with daylight, proper ventilation, openness, and views of greenery significantly enhance well-being, demonstrating that our design interventions can either harm or heal. So in summary, together these studies show that color, light, greenery, and multisensory design are not mere aesthetic elements, but active agents influencing comfort, productivity, mental health, as well as well-being. And my research journey, rooted in color psychology, has expanded into evidence-based neuroarchitectural studies, contributing to global understanding and also placing Sri Lanka in its evolving field as well. So moving on to my recommendations and future directions. The future of neuroarchitecture in Sri Lanka lies in creating spaces that truly nurture human potential. Achieving this requires a lot of collaboration across disciplines, architects, designers, neuroscientists, psychologists, planners, working together on context-specific, evidence-based solutions. And also by embracing our cultural and climatic uniqueness, we can design classrooms that spark curiosity, workplaces that ease stress, and healthcare settings that heal holistically, and public spaces that foster connections between people. And the pedagogical intervention. Education must play a pivotal role here, embedding neuroarchitecture into curricula through hands-on multisensory design to prepare the next generation of human-centered designs. And also the interventions of policymakers. Policies and advocacy can reinforce this shift by promoting mental health, sensitive building codes, biophilic design institutions, and incentives for evidence-based practices. And emerging technologies, from wearable sensors to VR and longitudinal studies, will further enable data-driven design that puts human well-being at the heart of every space. And in short, the future of neuroarchitecture in Sri Lanka is definitely within reach, offering hope for healthier, more compassionate and life-affirming environments for generations to come. So to end, I would like to give away this take-home thought. Neuroarchitecture calls us design with the brain and human experience at its center. So when we design for the mind, we shape not just spaces, but our own lives. Thank you so much.
Our heartfelt gratitude to Professor Anishka Hettiarachchi for that insightful and compelling lecture on neuroarchitecture. Your expertise and perspectives have undoubtedly broadened our understanding on the topic. As a token of appreciation to Professor Anishka Hettiarachchi and their contribution to this inaugural lecture series, I now invite Professor Ruan Gopura from the University of Moratua to present the lecture memento to our distinguished professor for the day. Additionally, I'd also like to invite Professor Hettiarachchi to please accept the lecture memento. Thank you, Professor Gopura and Professor Hettiarachchi. Before we conclude, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge and extend our appreciation to the esteemed sponsors of this inaugural lecture. Kagas Private Limited, our event sponsor, Daily FT, our print media sponsor, and the Sri Lankan Scientist, our social media sponsor. With that, we officially bring today's 39th inaugural lecture to a close. Thank you all for being a part of this enlightening gathering. We look forward to welcoming you to the next iteration of this esteemed lecture series. Have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you.